By accident, as it often happens in stories that leave a mark. Yulia was rushing to a job interview. Rain was falling just enough to blur her thoughts and makeup. As she turned the corner, a cup of hot coffee spilled from a stranger's hands onto her white coat. Shock, apologies, damp fabric, and a smile. "You look cold," he said, offering her his scarf. "Can I make up for this somehow?" His name was Liam, a graphic designer working in the studio across the street. She was an aspiring marketing manager, still chasing her dreams. They began to run into each other, first by chance, then by choice. Their evenings smelled like wine, ginger tea, and conversations about everything. He taught her to slow down. She taught him to dream out loud. They were comfortable in silence, uncomfortable apart. But life, like the rain that morning, wasn't always sunny. Stress, work, expectations, fears. He shut down. She tried to fix everything. More words were spoken, fewer were heard. "We've become different people," Liam said one evening. "Maybe," she replied, "but we're still here." Silence. They parted ways. No yelling, no embrace, just letting go. 2 years passed. Yulia saw him by chance in a cafe, the one where they once argued over cinnamon and coffee. "You've changed," she said, smiling. "So have you, but there's still something in you." He trailed off. "You know," she said, "I walk slower in the rain now, learn to find meaning in little things." Liam nodded. "So it wasn't all for nothing, right?" "It never was," she replied. "Maybe we were just meant for that version of us." They went their separate ways, but each carried warmth from that crossroads where everything began. After that brief conversation at the cafe, Yulia walked around with a strange feeling, like someone had quietly touched her soul. She had a new life now, lived alone. Mornings were filled with rituals no one interrupted. She wrote a blog about mental health. She learned not to expect, not to cling, not to seek herself in others. But that encounter with Liam opened old doors she'd closed long ago. A week later, a message. "Liam, don't mean to be pushy, but how about that coffee with cinnamon again?" She waited before replying, then simply wrote, "Yulia, no cinnamon. Surprise me." They met again in the same park where they once hid from the rain. "I used to think we didn't work out because we weren't ready," he said, looking at her hands instead of her eyes. "But maybe we just feared being real." "I wanted you to save me," she replied softly. "You wanted me to understand you without words. We both asked for things we couldn't give." He stayed quiet. The wind played with her hair. Even the city seemed to hush, listening to their honesty. "So, why are we here now?" she whispered. "Because maybe this time, we're ready to simply be. No expectations." She looked at him, not like before, full of hope, just real, calm, accepting. They didn't rush back into being a couple. First came long walks, then dinners, then shared silences. A month later, he showed up at her door with a book and a note tucked inside. "Not all crossroads are random. If we met again, maybe it's not a turn, but a shared road." She smiled, for the first time, not because she should, but because she felt it. They never called it a second chance, because no one owed anyone anything. It was something new, though familiar. No illusions, no pretending, just them. Their evenings no longer smelled of wine. Now it was herbal tea and playlists they made for each other. She made berry oatmeal in the mornings. He brought her coffee in bed. She told him about her next project. He showed her sketches for a children's book he dreamed of illustrating. They argued sometimes about silly things. She loved quiet. He loved loud music while cleaning. She hated spontaneous road trips. He hated planning. But now they didn't run from arguments. They knew how to pause and say, "I hear you." And that changed everything. One rainy spring night, Liam stood in the kitchen, sketching something on a napkin. Yulia walked out of the shower wrapped in a robe and peeked over his shoulder. "What's that?" "A logo for my book. It's called Crossroads." He turned around and held up the napkin. Two intersecting roads. In the center, a tiny heart. "Maybe the book's not just about meetings," he said. "Maybe it's about choices. And we chose to come back." She hugged him from behind. No words. Some things don't need to be said. A year later, they sat on the same bench in the same park. Liam held a small box, quietly opened it. Inside, a simple silver ring with an engraving. Met, chose, accepted. "I'm not asking for a fairy tale," he said, "just to be each other's reality." She smiled. "I don't want a fairy tale either," she replied. "I want the morning when you complain about cold water, and the evening when you hide in a blanket. I want an ordinary together." They never became an Instagram perfect couple, but they became a story, one that lived in glances, routines, inside jokes, and shared